Well, hello and thanks for joining me. It's another week gone by and I look forward to having a chat with you. Yep, I've got a few things in mind. I've got a little pile of things here, but I'll have a chat about those, and then I'm going to read a little story that Pete wrote called The Fish Shop. Mum's going to do a bit about her father's family line that she didn't know anything about. And because people didn't talk about things in those days, well, her family didn't. She knew nothing about it at all. So that's been, interesting for her, and it's helped to make sense of some things. And then a little film. Oh, fascinating fact is about the butterfly's wings. So I look forward to sharing that with you. So shall we have a chat first? Okay, well, first of all, I've got a book here. It's my wedding anniversary next week. I got married in 1968. Don't ask me how many years it is. I'm no good with figures. I can't remember. And, that's one of those things. As mums, just book, you'll see. Oh, message. Let me see if that's urgent. Lovely. Okie doke then. That's from Anne in Ireland. So that's nice. We're going to do a Zoom meeting with Mum and her. I look forward to that. So this is what I bought. A friend of mine told me about it, and I bought it for Pete because it's the year he was born, as you know. And it's a super book. I got it off Abe Books, A-B-E. Abe Books, and it cost me, beautiful condition, cost me £2.40 with free postage. I mean, you can't beat that, can you? But the reason I want to show you, it's got some super photos in, and he said it's very interesting to read. But the photo I want to show you is here. It was a criminal offence to waste food in wartime, but every neighbourhood had its pig bin, and no opportunity must be lost to produce food for an island under siege. And here, National Fire Service men rear pigs in the ruins of Lincoln Inn Fields. I think these things didn't just stop, did they? And that was a memory that he had, pigs in back gardens. And here's the photo. Yeah, so that was just about the pigs. So the other thing I wanted to show you was a hat I knitted. Well, I knitted it last year at the beginning of lockdown, and I did it in the Scottish wool, and it's designed by Uti Kater, Outikater, and it's called the Silver Darling Beanie. So it's a beanie hat, but it's called the Silver Darlings. And it's knitted in Jamieson and Smith's 2-ply jumper weight, which is the pucker wool, the real Shetland wool. And it's beautiful. It's so warm, but so light. And it says herring, which once was called the Silver Darling in English-speaking fishing communities, has for hundreds of years provided a source of livelihood for the coastal communities from the Baltic Sea to the Atlantic Ocean and beyond. In Silver Darling's beanie, which celebrates this humble fish, 19 stylized herrings swim in the sea that ripples in dual colours of teal, green and blue, coming together at a 16-point compass rose at the top. And it's got a picture of all the boats on the back. And the women gutting. And it was big business. Oh, you can see the pattern there. Yeah, so I wanted to knit that. And I wear it all the time, along with my curlew hat as well. Or I alternate them. And here it is. Here's the rose at the back. So pretty, isn't it? and all the silver darlings along the side. The herring. It's such a pretty hat. But again, like the curlew, it's got meaning. Oh, we've got a thread. I've got a small head. This brim, I had to double over and sew up because my head is quite small. But if you've got a bigger head, then the brim comes down lower. I'll put it on to show you. I like mine coming right over the ears because when we're walking down there by the sea, and yeah, it's so warm and cozy. It fits me like a glove. This is just nicely sitting there. So it was a big success. So I thought I'd show you that. Little beanie hat, silver darlings. So I'm going to show you Tommy's quilt now. I said I'd show you, didn't I? So do you remember last week? Oh, let me have a sip of tea. Do you remember last week? We looked at the fabric and I discarded a couple of them because they just didn't go. So I'll put up a picture here, and this is what Heather and I did. We eventually, well, by chatting, taking this in, putting it out, putting it back, we eventually came up with a design and, you know, folded the bits of fabric over, and then I cut it out. And I was pleased with it when I cut it out. And here's the picture of it cut out. And what I use when I cut it out, I use a ruler. It's got inches on, 2 inches, 3, 4, etc. But if you turn it round that way, you read the black lines, 1.5. Oh, sorry, it's upside down. 1.5, 2.5. So that way you can get a half if you read the black, and that way you can get an even number if you read the white. These are the best cutting cutters. What do you call these? Rulers that you can get. They're creative grids. And the reason they're good is they've got all this like sandpaper, so it doesn't slide across. Because what you do, for those of you that don't know, you use a rotary cutter, and the rule is always close, open, always close, because they're as sharp as sharp. And then you go shush along and you cut your fabric along, and your fabric cuts beautifully. And you cut to the measurement of the pattern, because you've got all your measurements on here. So that's what you do after choosing. Then what you do is you get some sandpaper, because you don't want your fabric to slip. And if you've cut it out exactly right, which is, it is imperative really, then I draw the 1/4 inch line. I draw it round. If you're not that good at cutting out, then what you need to do is make yourself a template out of, I don't know, you can make it out of cornflake packets, whatever. Make that template exactly the right size. Then you can cut out with scissors if you like, but you put the template on here and just draw around it. But because I know I've cut that out exactly right, then I can put that on and I draw around. So I've got my 1/4 inch line. Here's one I did earlier. I drew the 1/4 inch line along there. I've drawn it along there. And then I've sewn it together. Sewn it together. And as you can see there, it's all sewn together. So this is my first bit. These are my middle bits. All sewn together. I like using this thread. It's Orifil. It's the best thread in the world. It just slips through. I always use a thimble. Can't do it without. And this is what I use as well. A little mouse. It's just a triangle of fabric that you sew together underneath. But then you've got your pins, because you hold it, you pin it like that, pin it together, go through the little dots, go through 3 times to make a really good joint, and then sew along. This is just the process. I'm just showing you the process. So yes, then the middle one is different to the other 2. It's got that one on it. So there we are. That's what I'm doing. So that's all the tools I need. And they can fit nicely in my little bag that I made. I can take that wherever I go. I've got a little pair of scissors. All fits in there nicely. And my friend made me a little needle case. And the needle I use is very small. It is very small. You can see, look. Very small and fine. That's what I like, because I can get the small stitches along then. I don't use that for quilting, but I use that for sewing together. So I've got everything there in one little bag. So I'll show you as I put it together. And I find that so relaxing. So what I'm going to do now is read you a little story. The Fish Shop. The fish shop was situated on the corner of Mims Hall Road and Mutton Lane. It was first in a parade of shops which included a greengrocer's and newsagents. These were the last shops in Potter's Bar as you headed towards South Mims. At the other end, standing behind its car park, about 25 yards from the parade, was the Stratford Arms public house. In front of the pub and slightly to the left as you stood with your back to the road was a detached off-licence standing like a sentry guarding the pub. In front of the shops with its entrance opposite the off-licence was a service road, the other entrance being 1/4 of a mile past the shops. Separating the service road from the main road was a grass verge which stopped opposite the fish shop and started again the other side of a paved area. The paved area was there for a purpose. It was a bus stop, and upon the paving stood a crude shelter which only afforded protection from rain that fell straight down, and, as anyone living in Britain would tell you, that was a very rare occurrence indeed. Consequently, when waiting for the bus in inclement weather, most people used the shelter of the fish shop and made the mad dash across the service road when they saw the bus coming down Mutton Lane. Dennis, the fish shop owner, didn't mind, even though he knew all those waiting for the 29 or 242 bus and occasionally the 313 country bus wouldn't be buying any fish, although there was always the chance of a sale of Pepsi-Cola or some other soft drink. The fish shop was very large with a curved front and 2 windows separated by an enormous roller shutter. One window faced the service road and Mutton Lane with a view of the fields beyond, and in the distance the start of Cranbourne Woods. The other window looked across Mims Hall Road to a small factory unit of red brick and a flat roof. When the roller shutter was open, which was during the day, Tuesday to Saturday, there was revealed a huge marble display counter following the curve of the shop, slightly raised at the back with chrome drain holes at the front inside the lip of the edge, which went all the way round. Here was displayed all types of fish, separated from each other by large bunches of dark green parsley, looking a little like box hedging in a knot garden. Cod cutlets and cod fillets, mackerel with their stripy skins, skate wings, rock eel, sole and plaice lying flat on the slab as they had once done on the seabed, and every now and again a whole salmon with its hooked jaw and glassy eye staring in defiance. Always there were sprats, sardines and yellow haddock, bloaters and kippers, and in a separate container, eels, writhing and twisting, seeking a means of escape. Occasionally a snake-like head would appear at the top of the container before falling back, the eel unable to maintain its grip on the smooth side. Towards the back of the shop, 4 to 5 feet from the slab, ran a high counter, on top of which ran a glass and chrome cabinet, 3/4 of the way along it. Behind this counter, fixed to the back wall, was a deep fat frying range. During the day this was a wet fish shop, but after 5 o'clock the marble slab would be empty, spotlessly clean, and dry enough for people to lounge on, because at night it became a fish and chip shop. Dennis never sold fish and chips during the day, not even Fridays, and he never sold wet fish at night. Dennis was a large, muscular man, hard-working, good-humoured and patient with his customers, even when they couldn't quite make up their minds what they wanted for tea and lunch. One day, though, I saw a different side to him. I was about 11 years old and had been out with Colin, a friend of sorts, who lived 2 doors up from me. I cannot remember where we'd been, but we were on our way home and passing the fish shop, and we noticed Dennis at the back behind his counter, preparing for the frying that evening. Colin pulled a face at him and called him some name like Stinky Fish. This didn't go down very well with Dennis, and he told us to clear off. I thought he didn't seem his usual self, but nevertheless poked my tongue out. Dennis made a move as if to come after us, and we were off. But it was a false alarm, and after running down Mims Hall Road a little way, we knew he wasn't chasing us. That is when Colin made his big mistake. "Let's go back," he said. "I don't think we should push our luck. He doesn't seem in a very good mood." "Nonsense," said Colin. "Are you chicken?" Reluctantly, I followed him back. As we cautiously looked round the open front of the shop, we could see Dennis still where he'd been before. Colin blew a raspberry and called him Stinky Fish again. I half-heartedly put my thumb on my nose and wiggled my fingers at him. What happened next surprised us both. Dennis leapt over the counter. We were off running as fast as we could down the hill. I could hear that Dennis had not stopped this time and was behind us and catching us up fast. I was in trouble. I could run. In fact, I would have been champion of my year at school if it hadn't been for one person, and he was now in front of me, leaving me to a fate that I cared not to think about. I could hear the size 10 feet of Dennis getting closer and closer. I waited for the grip of his hand round the back of my neck, like I'd felt at school when being marched off to the headmaster by old Tibbs, one of the teachers I never got on with. Dennis was getting closer and closer. I could see him out of the corner of my eye, which was screwed up in anticipation of something horrible about to happen. I looked at Colin, who was about 5 yards in front, just as he glanced over his shoulder at me. I saw him smirk. I was furious, scared, and I had a sick feeling all at the same time. But then the unthinkable happened. Dennis passed me. I looked at him as he did so and noticed his eyes were firmly fixed on Colin. I looked back at Colin in time to see his smirk change to a look of horror as he realised what was happening. He was now the quarry, not me. I stopped running and watched the inevitable happen. Dennis had hold of Colin by the scruff of the neck, a handful of jacket, and by the look on Colin's face, some flesh as well. They were coming towards me back to the fish shop. I thought it would be prudent to cross over the road, just in case, and then I followed at a safe distance, my curiosity getting the better of my fear. I reached the fish shop and looked in, just in time to see Colin being held over the corner of the marble slab, face down by one of Dennis's huge hands. The other was holding a bamboo cane. It rose and fell 6 times with great accuracy across Colin's rather plump behind, Colin's howls of pain increasing with each stroke. I did notice, however, that the power behind the strokes was about as half of that of Basher Baines, the meter out of punishment at school. Colin, his ordeal over, came out of the fish shop rubbing his behind and taking very deep breaths. "I suppose you think that's funny," he said. "Not really," I replied, holding back a smile as I thought of the smirk on his face when he was leaving me behind. "Promise not to tell anyone. If Mum finds out, I'll get another pasting." "No, I won't tell anyone," I said, meaning it this time. And I never did, until now. Well, that's a story of days gone by, isn't it? A story of the 1950s, not one that could happen now. I think the fish shop man would be up for assault. But there we are. It didn't do those boys any harm. I don't think it did it? Coming from a family where I was never hit, never clipped round the ear, never even thought of it, never knew about it. It's not something our school did. We got order marks, and it wasn't something my family did, my parents did. So no, this is all new to me. I don't know how that would feel, but maybe it taught him a good lesson not to be cheeky. But boys will be cheeky, won't they? So that's the fish shop. And now, last week I popped over to see Mum, and it's about Mum's family. So I'll see you after that. You didn't know you'd be doing this at this age, did you? Neither did I. But it's been quite fun.
Cool.
Right. So what we're going to do this morning, because we've looked at your mum's line, haven't we?
Yes.
Now we're going to look at your dad's line. And it'd be quite interesting. So I've looked up a bit on Ancestry.
Yes.
And we've got an unusual man's name. I think it's unusual. His name was Capel Tolman.
Oh,
Yeah.
Capel.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's easy to remember, isn't it? But guess what? He had a son called Henry Capel. So that was running through the family then, this name Capel. And he was born, the original Capel, he was born in 1800. Well, I think 221 years ago.
84 years before my father was born.
Righty-ho then, because that was his great-granddad, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well done. I wish I could do the maths like you, Mum. Yeah. Now, guess what? He was a bootmaker. He made shoes and boots. And guess where he lived? Honiton.
Wow.
Honiton. I know, Devon.
Yes.
Yeah. So here we've got this bootmaker, Capel Tolman, and he had a wife called Elizabeth, and then his son got married on December the 25th, 1856.
Oh.
And we were talking about getting married because you were married Christmas Eve, weren't you?
Christmas Eve, yes.
And your sister was married
Christmas Day.
Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And we were saying how people did because that was your time off.
Yes, that was the only time we had off from work.
Christmas Day and Boxing Day.
Two days, and I got married Christmas Eve because that was a Sunday. So we had Sunday off, and Monday off, and Tuesday off.
Right.
That was our 3 days off work that year.
And that
we got married.
That was it then.
Yes.
Mm. Well, so we got Capel.
Yes.
We got his son, Henry Capel. And he was a not a mender, a shoemaker.
Shoemaker, yeah.
Yeah. Good job, Mum.
Oh,
Had a good
yeah.
job. And Henry Capel, he did his apprenticeship. He did it all pucker and he was qualified. And when you look on some of the later censuses, it says own means. And I was listening to Who Do You Think You Are?
Yes.
And when they said own means, or that it was that House Through Time.
Oh, yes.
I think when they said own means, it meant he was self-employed.
Self-employed, that's right.
Yeah, so must have been doing okay, mustn't he?
Yes.
But then him and his wife, Elizabeth, decided to move to the city. And so guess where they lived, Mum? 229 Pentonville Road. Amazing. 229 Pentonville Road. Dad was a prison visitor in Pentonville
prison.
Prison, so we know it so well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the houses have been knocked down, and I think it's workplaces now.
Yes.
He was born in 1833, and in 1833, Mum, children 13 to 18 were told they could only work 12 hours a day.
God.
I know. So what they could work before, goodness only knows.
Yes.
If you were 9 to 13, you could work 8 hours a day. And they suggested you had 2 hours schooling.
Yeah.
I mean, did children ever go to bed? We spend our life getting children to bed now.
Yeah.
Well, you must have spent your life keeping them up then.
Yes.
I know.
And that's children. When you think of how life changed when we were 8 hours a day, you know, as a grown-up.
As a grown-up, this is children.
This was children.
And so that's what life was like when Henry Capel was born. That's what was going on. So anyway, him and his wife, Elizabeth, moved to Pentonville Road, and they had a son called Frederick. That's quite a new name for our family, really, Frederick.
Yes. I don't remember any uncles or Fred or children being called Fred. No.
And they had this guy called Frederick, amongst others. We'll just focus on him.
Yes.
But unfortunately, in 1901, Mum, he dies. Frederick dies. And you know, the average lifespan of a man then was 46 years.
Oh.
46 years old. You were considered, you'd led a good life. And he died when he was 40, so premature. And then Victoria also died, and in 1901. And so we're now moving into the Edwardian.
Yes.
Things a bit different. Yeah. There was 32.5 million in Britain then, and there's 67 million now.
No.
So we've doubled.
Yes.
We've doubled from 1901.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's quite a lot, isn't it? Frederick was a glass blower.
That was a dangerous job then. Yes.
In fact, on his wedding certificate, it said experimental glass blower. So he might have been in really, dangerous work.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, he got married when he was 21. He died when he was 40, but he got married when he was 21. And he had 4 children. So this is your granddad we're talking about.
Yes.
Your granddad died before you were born.
My dad's dad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your dad's dad, Frederick. Got to get a picture of him in our heads, really.
Yes.
Think of your dad and think of what Frederick might have looked like. But he had 4 children. He had Frederick, another Fred, his firstborn, in 1883.
A year before my dad.
Yeah, because he had Richard the next year, your dad.
Yes.
He had Alfred in 1891. There's a little gap there.
Yes.
And then he had Alma Lydia, because your dad married a Lydia, and his sister was Alma Lydia. 1898.
Wow. Oh, I know. Aunt Alma figured a lot in my life.
Did she?
Yes. As a visitor,
Yes. When your dad was born in 1884, Guess what was invented? Kellogg's cornflakes.
As far back as that?
Yeah. When your dad was born.
Well.
Yeah, Kellogg's cornflakes. Did you ever have them for breakfast or anything?
Oh, yeah. No.
Not there.
When I was small.
Oh,
yes.
There we are then, just invented.
Yes.
The NSPCC came into operation when your dad was born.
Wow.
So they must have been looking out for kids, yeah.
Yes.
That was nice, wasn't it? And guess what? There was a guy called Michael Marks, and he set up a stall in Leeds when your dad was born and went on to become Marks and Spencer's. Yeah.
Wow.
All that time ago.
My goodness. Exactly.
So in 1901, guess what? In 229 Pentonville Road, we've got Henry Capel. We've got, so he's your great-granddad, isn't he? Is he your great-granddad or your dad? No, your great-granddad. Your great-grandma Elizabeth was living there, 229 Pentonville Road. But Frederick, who was your granddad, he was in hospital in 1901 in Holborn Infirmary. In fact, that's where he died.
Yes.
And Elizabeth, your nan, your dad's mum, moved in with them. I think she needed help because she had Alma, who was 3. Yes. She had Alfred, who was 10. Yes. She had your dad, who was 16. Yes. And she had Fred, who was 17. Because her Fred
had died.
Yes.
Yes.
And so there she was, moved in with her, her husband's dad and mum.
Yes.
But when you look on the 1911 census, which is 10 years ahead, we've got your dad being married to your mum and living with little Richard, Uncle Dick. And I had to wear this, Mum. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Uncle Dick gave that to me when I was about 13. Yeah, for my birthday. And I always loved it and I always kept it. And so, that's nice, isn't it?
He loved you when you were a baby.
He did. I know. I always felt that. I know. And he died. I was so young when he died. And your dad's a carman for a linen draper's. And they live 131 Hornsey Road in one front room.
Yes.
In one front room. Yeah. So what happens in 1911, if we look at the census with his mum, she's married again, a William McGarry. Oh, it doesn't feel right, this William McGarry. He's out of work. I don't think he does much for the family. In fact, I don't think very much at all. So he's living, she's a washerwoman mum. They're living, Alf is a porter, Alma is at school, age 13, and they live at Winchester Street in a tenement house, all in one room. So Alf's 20, Alma's 13, you've got Elizabeth and William McGarry, all living in one room. Well, that can't have been nice, can it?
No.
That can't have been nice. No. But a couple of years later, we find Alf's got married. And he's got married up in Yorkshire. And in 1913, he gets married. And of course, 1914, the war breaks out.
Yes.
He has a little son called Alfred George. Now, Alfred George dies in 2000, Mum, and I would have loved to have met him. I even think little Alfred George worked in the mills when he was young.
Wow.
Yeah. Because his dad had died in the First World War in one of the biggest battles the world has ever known.
The Battle of the Somme.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. Battle of the Somme.
Yes.
I know.
And my brother Alf was born 1916.
So as your dad's brother died, his son was born.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Because May was born in 13 and Alf was born in 16.
So your dad had enough on his plate in the First World. I bet your dad was at war for some of that time too. Well, I know he was.
Yes.
Oh, not an easy time, Emma. to, these little ones. He's had his 4 little ones.
Yes.
He's lost his brother. He'd lost his other brother. And, of course, Frederick, he died in 1927, which was a year after you were born. And he had 2 little ones, 1905, but he didn't live. He died in 1906. And then 1907, but he lived till he was 1984 he died.
Wow.
And that's another person we could have got to know.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, we knew no one really on the Tolman side.
No.
And then, of course, he loses his sister. Not to death, but where does she go?
She goes to South Africa, doesn't she? Yes.
Yeah. Off she sails in 1933 because she's married a South African.
Yes.
And she goes off with her 2 children, Ralph, who's 11, Alma, who's 2. But she did come back and visit.
She came back
after the war.
And because she was the only member of Dad's family that he had then, it was such a big thing made of when she did come to visit. It was a big visit.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you know where she lived just before she left in 1933 was 17 Paget Street, Gillingham. That's the address she gives on her voyage,
Kent,
Kent.
Because Kent was part of the country then,
It's still quite countryish now, but Gillingham we know well, don't we?
Yes, exactly.
So that's the history of your dad's side, really.
Well,
I like the name Capel, and I like the fact that it puts... Oops, we go off after 20 minutes. It puts me in Honiton.
Yes.
In not too distant, not too far away.
In Devon.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So we'll leave it there then. Okay, then we'll say cheerio.
Yes. Bye-bye.
And we'll see you next week.
Lovely.
Bye.
Bye.
So thanks, Mum. I think that's the end now. She's looked at her mum's family line. She's looked at her dad's family line. And what came up from my little story last week was about her wedding. So I said to Mum, next time we have a chat, can we talk about the wedding? Because she borrowed her wedding dress. That's the next chat I'm going to have with her. So I'm going to have a little chat about butterflies now. And it's quite a topical one. And again, it's a fascinating fact. So we rely on fossil fuels a lot, don't we? There's a lot in the news about it. And scientists are eager to improve the solar paneling, that we use. And according to one scientist, the solution to this problem may be fluttering right in front of our eyes. Why? Because the scales on the butterfly's wing have honeycomb-like holes. To keep themselves warm, butterflies spread their wings in the sun. Well, we know that. We've seen it. We've all seen that. The wings of some species of swallowtail are remarkably efficient at trapping and absorbing sunlight. The insect's secret lies not just in their dark pigment, but also in the structure of microscopic overlapping scales coating their wings. The scales in turn contain rows of honeycomb-like holes separated by inverse V-shaped ridges that funnel light into the holes. This ingenious structure traps incoming sunlight, making the wings extremely black and warming the butterfly with amazing efficiency. Butterfly wings may rank among the most delicate structures in nature, says Science Daily, but they have given researchers powerful inspiration for new technology that doubles the production of hydrogen gas, a green fuel of the future. Other promising applications include optical instruments and solar cells. Engineers are seeking to copy the wing's texture in order to make high-tech coatings for industry and medical equipment that are resistant to dirt and water. Nature is full of engineering marvels, from the micro to the macro scale that have inspired mankind for centuries, says researcher Bharat Bhushan. So that's my little fascinating fact about the structure of a butterfly's wings. Right, so I'll come back and I'll do a little bit on TA. Where we left off last week, we did about adult, didn't we? I'll see you in a minute when I've had a slurp of tea. Right, I'm back. So this is about contamination, because we've looked at parent, haven't we? We've looked at adult and we've looked at child. But sometimes, and it needs to be said, but don't worry about it. I just want to tell you so that in the future, when we're really getting into TA, and you're getting au fait with it. So when we can say we're in contamination when we think we're in adult, but actually the parent is contaminating the adult. So the parental slogans that we were taught when we were children, parent, thoughts, feelings and behaviour learned in childhood. If it's something that we've learned in childhood, but we think sounds quite adult now, then that's what we call contamination. And that's where we can ask ourselves the question, is that true? Remember, adult is the here and now. We're making the judgments by what we see. So let's have a look at these, a couple of these. People can't be trusted. Well, some people can't be trusted, but I know a lot of people that can be trusted. But I also know a lot of people that can't be trusted. So in adult, I would say some people can be trusted or some people can't be trusted. But from parent, I might say people can't be trusted because that's what I was taught. That's what I hear in my voice. Thoughts, feelings and behaviours learned in childhood. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Well, we may decide in adult not to try again. We might do something and think, do you know what, that's really not for me. I'm going to leave that. I don't want to do it. Or we may decide in adult, I'll give that another bash. I might succeed if I do. I'll give it another go. But in adult, I would look at things and make that decision for myself. But if I bring thoughts, feelings and behaviours that I learned, if at first you don't succeed, try again, then I'd keep going. I might think that's adult, but actually it's parent. And we call that parent contamination. So, yes, we could say there, do I really want to? Is it really so that I must? Must I try again? Is that true? Well, no, I can stop if I want to. So can you see where we're getting into the adult here and now? If I have child contamination, thoughts, feelings and behaviours replayed from childhood, then my grown-up thinking, my adult thinking is evoked with these feelings from the past. Maybe I'm leaving a party and I hear people laughing as I leave. Oh, they're laughing at me. I'm not aware that it's a replay. It's contamination. I mistake that childhood situation for grown-up reality. So again, I say, is it really true? Were they really laughing at you? Or were they laughing at a joke that someone's just said and you didn't hear? See, we have to test it. Sometimes we can use the word delusion. It's a delusion. And that's where I come back with that question. Is it really true? I'm no good at spelling or arithmetic. Well, I might be good enough, but I might have heard in child, I might have heard that from school. People just don't like me. Is that true? Actually, I've got quite a few friends. That's child. Coming from school when I felt a bit left out. I can't stop smoking. I can't give up chocolate. Well, is that true? Actually, you can. If you decide in adult to go on a diet. But child says, no, I can't. It's yeah. But we're thinking we're in adult because they sound very adult things, don't they? So that's contamination. But we're going to be talking about that as we look at parent, adult, child. Next week, we're going to look at the transaction. We're going to start transactional analysis, and we're going to look at how we communicate. So I hope you find that interesting. Quite a bit to think about there this week. So now I'm going to introduce the little film. It's just a little film of the sea. It was full moon, and I managed to take the full moon, a beautiful sunrise, but because it was full moon, it was a very high tide. And yeah, I just made a little film of the high tide. So I hope you enjoy that. And I'll see you next time. It's been fun. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Bye.
Straight cruising, headed for a bruising, watching out for number one. You gotta slow down, look around you, son. Today is just today and not tomorrow. Where you're going, you can rest your head. Where you're going, brightness looks big. Where you're going, truth cannot be hid. You gotta get going. Easy now. You gotta get going. Easy now. Be hard working so you can be deserving of the rest that you are given. You gotta slow down and look around you, son. Give a lot and live a little. Work with what you got. Where you're going, you can rest your head. Where you're going, brightness looks big. Where you're going, truth cannot be hid. You gotta get going. Easy now. You gotta get going. Easy now. Get along, give a hand, sleep heavy, be the man. Just there, where you are, do something, be the star. You gotta get going. Easy now, you gotta get going. Easy now.
again tomorrow. There's a new day to wash away the pain. There's a new day to take away your sorrow. And the old ways get washed out by the rain. Darling, you've got to keep holding on through the night, 'cause I promise you this: if you try to get some sleep, if you give up the fight, if only just for a bit, there's a new day to leave behind your troubles. There's a new day, and it will set you free. There's a new day to get you through your struggles. I will always think of you and me. Darling, you've got to keep holding on through the night, 'cause I promise you this: if you try to get some sleep, if you give up the fight, if only just for a bit, there's a new day. It is waiting for us. There's a new day waiting round the bend. There's a new day, and it will restore us. There'll be new ways. This is not the end.